Yes. Just letting everyone in. Right, I think we're nearly there. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Geoactive's webinar, What's New in IP and IC 2024. Thank you all for joining us. My name's Claire Sim, I'm Marketing Manager for Geoactive. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of how today's going to work. We're going to be covering both software products in this webinar, IP and IC. We're going to start with Interactive Petrophysics, which is going to be hosted by Ross Brackenridge. Our colleague Paul Spooner has been doing an awful lot of travelling recently, so Ross has stepped in. So we do have a change of presenter for IP. If you have any questions at any time, please do use the Q&A function or the chat function, and we will get back to you. Following the webinar. So yeah, I think that's all from me. So Ross, I will hand over to you.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Are we recording?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Requests for that. Okay. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. This is the Eastern effort. Yeah, so it might even be good evening for some of you. Thanks for joining. As Claire said, I'm going to cover the first part of the webinar, which is about what is new in IP 2024. So IP 2024 was just released within the last month. So there's a lot of new functionality in there. We do actually tend to, we're doing continuous development these days, which is a much more efficient way of doing things. So rather than save everything up for a year and then release it all at once, we're doing continuous releases. So a lot of this stuff is brand new in IP 2024. Some of it you might recognize from some of the later updates from IP 2023. And I also mentioned that some of the things that are they didn't quite make it into the main release, but they're only weeks away from coming. So it's that continuous development and release schedule that we have. Okay, I'll just switch my camera off now. I've said hello. So I've broken this up into 4 segments. First part is about, we had a focus on user experience, a bit about, like trying to improve performance and sort of the everyday use of IP. So that's like things for everyone. We've then got some new additions, that's like new modules or new workflows, a few things to talk about there. And of course, we always upgrade and improve our existing advanced modules. So I'll talk about those, and then we'll very quickly just tell you what's coming in the next few weeks. Okay, so quite a lot to fit into half an hour, so very much will be just a kind of skimming over them, but if there is anything that catches your eye and you really want to know more about it, please just get in touch with us and we can have a dedicated session to that topic. And we will be doing other public webinars on various topics as well throughout the year. Just a little bit about, we did this sort of realigned some of the things in IP. So you might notice that some of the modules and menus have maybe moved around a little bit, just small tweaks. That was just to try and better align everything. I think over the years, as things have evolved, some of the names of our licenses didn't sort of marry up with the menu that those modules were in. So we've just tried to align things a lot better. So, and you notice within the IP, there's new menu items for geophysics and geomechanics. They've got their own area. So we've got the foundation suite, and we've got 6 kind of advanced suites. So each of these now have their own menu within IP. And then the license name will relate to that suite. Things like training courses, we're going to try and align the name of the training course exactly to the same as the license and the menu items, just so everything's a bit more aligned. But yeah, that's probably the main thing you will notice is just maybe some tweaks around the menu, and our what was called platform basic license, which no one ever really liked that name, is now called IP interpretation because it represents everything that's in that interpretation menu. So that was just something to be aware of. Another thing to be aware of, when you install, you will get this message. It's just asking you to sign into our telemetry system. So that just gives us, it's all about trying to make the user experience better for you. So we're just asking to start to get feedback of your usage of IP. So what will that do? It'll tell us which areas of IP are used the most and how often, how long people tend to stay in a particular part of the software, and any crashes you have. Not that you get any crashes with IP, of course, but if you did get a crash, that would be reported to us automatically, and we can try and ensure that that doesn't happen again. So it's really just to try and help us help you. What it won't do, don't worry about this. I know people are very wary about data security at the moment. It's not going to gather any of your personal details. We will not be able to identify the behavior of any individual user. It's just giving us statistics of the general usage, and we're certainly not going to be watching you. So you can rest assured of that. So we encourage you to opt into that if you could, please. So I mentioned one of the things that we've been asked about a lot is about performance. This is really coming from those that use large databases with thousands of wells, mainly the US market, where that's quite commonplace, US land. So we've been working on performance to try and speed that up when we have got huge amounts of wells. So now if we, for example, if we loaded 2,000 wells into IP, it's actually 4 times faster than it was in IP 2023. So I think that's a big result there. And then if you wanted to take a module and batch run it across, say, 2,000 wells as well, was another test we did. Run the same module 2,000 times in different wells. We actually speeded that up by, it only takes half the time now. So you could actually, that's 100% faster, twice as fast, only taking 52% of the time it did before. We've also got a thing called projects now. Again, this is really going to come into play when you're working with very large databases. That's like when you've got thousands of wells, but maybe you only want to work within a sort of subset of that database. So you can now create a project within a database. So that will only load in those specific wells at one time. You'll be able to choose those from a map when you first start up IP. But of course, you don't have to use them at all. They're quite similar to well lists. So some of you might use well lists, which is a collection of wells within your database. The difference here with well lists is that doesn't affect any of the loading or what's being shown in the browser at any one time. But this, with a project, you will only see the wells that are within your project within that database. And this is an ongoing thing to try and improve the experience of those very large databases. So this will come into play more as we make other improvements as well. So this is just the start of those improvements. There's more to come. Another thing we've added is anyone that's used IP will be very familiar with the working input set. That just means that whatever modules you open for the first time, it will try and find the curves in that set. But what we didn't have was for the output set. So now we've actually done the same thing. You'll see it one for output working set now up in this toolbar. So that means you can preset input and output curve sets. You can do them one at a time, changing them, or this is our multi-well working set manager, which allows you to do hundreds of wells at the same time. You can apply particular sets to every well. If it didn't have the set already existing in that well, it would have given you what you might have just seen a moment ago. It was given as a warning saying it can't find that set. But then by clicking on this option here, that says create sets if they don't exist, basically. So by ticking on that, applying again, it's then forced all the wells to be the working set there by creating the set in some of them. So that's kind of, two new things, the concept of an output working set and the ability to change them, lots of them at once. Just other little everyday tasks made easier. This is on the right here. Quite often you use crossplot to make an equation, and then you might maybe take note of that equation or try and save it somewhere, then bring it into the user formula to actually make calculations from it. But you can see now that just by right-clicking on that equation, you can launch straight into the user formula. Import and export wells with zip files. This is really handy, actually. I use this a lot. So previously, if you were sharing wells between colleagues, you would normally pick up the DAT file that was within your database and send that. But then if there was things in your working folder that you wanted as well, you would have to sort of take those and send them across as well. What this does is just very easily, you can say which wells do you want to export and export them to a zip file. It's like a special kind of zip for IP that takes all the information about that well and what's in the well folders, and then that can be, if you go to the import menu in IP, the other person can just bring in those zip files and bring them in easily. So it just makes things a lot easier to move wells between colleagues. Another thing we've added is this ability to have, instead of having typing in a parameter into a module, if that parameter already exists in your header as a parameter, we can actually just put in the module, just take the parameter from that well header attribute. So that way we can just have the parameter as an attribute, and then obviously every time you were using that module in different wells, it would just go and look for the relevant well header attribute for that well. So just it's another bit time-saving thing, and obviously say it can avoid errors as well when people reading a value off the header then typing it in again. So all of our, well, a lot of our modules have been updated to be able to do that. User formula and multi-line formula, they've just been updated now, so they'll be coming in the next update. Things for log plots. This is for caliper. This is actually for open hole caliper data, multiple caliper curves. You can display this borehole plot. You can have separate scales for the size of the image here, but also different scales for the color shading. We also have a new option for shading behind when you're using the mirror plot. You're looking at the same thing twice reversed, and you can put shading behind the curves. That works well for things like calipers as well. Still in log plot, when you make backup curves. Previously, though, as you wrapped around the log track, if you cut your curve off scale, it was the same. It appeared the same, so it was maybe hard to tell if you were on the normal scale or the backup scale. So now you can change the appearance of the curve as it wraps around the log track. So you're absolutely clear which scale you are looking at. Depth shifting, we've done quite a lot of stuff on log plot depth shifting. We did the stretch and squeeze type shifting before, but actually what some people asked for was just the bulk shift as well. So just a fixed shift up and down. So this can be done automatically now as well. There's an option for doing it with like normal curve data, or in this case with CCL data. And you can see that I had two CCLs that were off depth there, and I just automatically put them on depth very easily by just doing the right click function on the log plot. Multi-well plotting. So if you're doing a multi-well correlation, previously if you wanted to remove a well from the correlation, you actually had to close down the plot and then launch it again with just your new selection of wells. But now this just lets you able to toggle off wells on and off as you wish, just staying within the same multi-well plot. Okay. Ternary plots, some updates to those. So obviously we did have ternary plots before, but we've just made it a bit easier. We've improved this grid. It's a lot easier to apply changes to scales and things across all the wells instead of doing them individually, and better controls on the colors and the zone sets that we're using. And then there's this toggle down here in the corner where you can move between what the coloring of the data is. Is it colored by well? Is it colored by zones across all the wells, or is it zoned by the is it colored by the palette, the values of the data? So you can just easily toggle between those. Okay, so that was sort of general workflow things. Now we're on to sort of new shiny things, if you like. Experienced Eye, it came out in one of the updates of the previous, but we'll just let you know about that in case you haven't heard about it. Experienced Eye, the module, just to give you a bit of background on this. So if you're using machine learning modules, for example, for curve prediction or stuff in IP, that might be to repair data, to sort of fill gaps. Could be that you've got discrete core data and you want to build a model so you can kind of make a continuous curve. It could be that one of your sensors wasn't working on your tool in one of the wells, so you build a model to predict that sensor on wells that do have it and then apply it to a well that doesn't. So lots of ways you might be using our curve prediction modules. But the process you go through is something like this. You would gather your data. You then choose which curves are going into the model. You then select your algorithm. So that might be the neural networks module. It might be DTA, multilinear regression. And then you test it against some data that you've kind of held back and see how good the model is. But almost always you would then go back and say, okay, well, let's try. Maybe I need less data, because not often feature selection is important because more is not always better. So it's always good to have a sort of lightweight model and not to have data in there that's not actually contributing, because it can have a detrimental effect. So what you end up doing is changing the curves that you've got coming in. You might change the algorithm you're using, and you kind of go through this repetitive trial and error. You can spend days doing that, like this guy's stressed out. You can spend days doing this. So basically, Experienced Eye is trying to automate the process of doing this repetitive trial and error. So it's a module that allows us to automatically do up to 72 different combinations of different sets of curves going through different algorithms. So we've got 3 feature selection methods: backward feature elimination, Pearson's correlation, and our very own Experienced Eye feature selection. So we've actually developed our own method of doing this. But we're not just giving you one of these and saying this is the best one. We let you see them side by side. So here you've got the ranking of which of each of the methods they think is the most important curve to include in your model. How many of these should we add in? Should we take the top 4? Is it better if we take in the top 5 or 6, or does that make it worse? This is then testing that. So now we can see for each of the different feature selection methods, the top rank curves in combination with the different algorithms and the different combinations of curves. So each of these numbers represents the result of how well we predicted the target curve. So with this is measured at R2, we can actually change what error measurement we are. But all these numbers relate. So obviously they're shaded so that this sort of orangey colors aren't very good, but the greens are better. So we can see the ones using DTA and our Experienced Eye feature selection method are coming out one of the highest. In fact, it's saying that this one here is the best out of all the, sorry, it's actually that one above. It's the best out of all the combinations. Once we've decided that is the best one, we don't need to just take note of all this. We can actually immediately just click on it and launch into, so it's a DTA model. It'll bring us straight into the DTA model. It's selected those 4 curves. We create the model, run the model. And there we go. We've got, that's our prediction here, our real density and our predicted density. So now we know that we don't need to do that 72 times, because we know that that's going to come out with the best answer. So it's a huge time-saving thing. That's actually part of the base license as well. So everyone has got this. Obviously, you can only move through to the prediction modules that you have, like the DTA or neural networks. So you need a license for those. But the actual testing, Experienced Eye testing, is there for everyone. Other things, pulse neutron. We had the carbon auction module that was released recently. That's really for oil water environments. We've updated that now to use inelastic data to do a gas liquid analysis. So a lot of the tools have extra long space detectors now, and you can use that data to do a gas liquid model rather than oil water model. All this, it's got the same interactivity as the CO. This is just showing quickly that you might actually want to do 2 different interpretations or 2 different methods in one interpretation. You might have gas in the upper section, oil and water in the lower sections. So this is just, sorry, I forgot to, this is what I thought we were looking at. Yeah, this is showing that we're actually doing CO and gas on different zones within the interpretation. And when we launch the plot, you'll see zonal display. There's a gas liquid interpretation at the top and a carbon oxygen oil water interpretation at the bottom. We had a focus on CO2 storage, CCS. So there's been a few things added into IP. One of those is a brand new module for calculating CO2 storage. But we've also added in new such like storage capacity for CO2. We've also put in some new tabs in the fluid properties, in the basic log functions module. There's a new tab for CO2. In the cutoff and summation, we've also got some new features for accumulating the CO2 results, and in Mineral Solver, there's some new CO2 parameters. So you should be capable of doing some CO2 storage projects. For any of you that use UTAP wells, you might have a database of wells in there. Again, I realize this is probably US market mainly, but we now have updated the API in IP, so you can connect from the UTAP wells side. You have the ability to tap into your IP database and transfer data between, so you no longer have to export to LAS files to move between the two products. Upgrade areas to existing modules, quite a few things for image analysis. We've got a new custom plot launcher. So it's just a quicker way of building image analysis log plot. We select a template, select the zone set we want to use, the data source, what kind of tool it is, the pick set we want to use, and we can just launch the plot. So usually if you were building that from scratch, you would have had to define those things almost for every track as you added things in. So this just allows you to select a template, say this is the data source, the tool type that I want to apply to all the tracks. So it just really speeds things up. That's the same thing. If you've got bad data, we've got some new tools. So Pad QC identifies which buttons, you can see clearly which ones are slow or bad. We then have a tool for being able to manually go in and fix those bad buttons. But we also, once you've got the worst of it out, we've also got an image equalization module that just aligns all the buttons to take out any differences between them. And there's also a new method, statistical eigenvector analysis, otherwise known as SEAT. So this is a method from a paper in 2019. So we've implemented this method. So if you apply that, you can now see, well, we've got an updated stereo net, and we've also got on the resulting plot 2 new tracks which show you the mean and the axis from the SEAT calculation. Just some other things, more ability to save and restore your window arrangement that you've got when you close IP and come back in. We can read measure points, tool measure points directly from the dlist files instead of having to find them and type them in. More tool support for Halliburton STX tools. We've implemented a new way of exchanging DIP format, which complies with the SBWLA format, and some other interpretation methods here. Simplified Bingham, Mardia, and Fisher DIP statistics. Saturation height modeling, we've added an extra output here, which is the gas free water level parameter. Traditionally we've never actually used that with it in our calculation or saturation height calculations just with the method we're doing it. But we know a lot of people that want to use that parameter to put into Petrel after it's been calculated, so we're just outputting that parameter now, so you have it if you need it. Cement evaluation on some of the advanced tools, just a couple of changes. This was particularly for isolation scanner or integrity explorer data. We have the ability to normalize data, because sometimes you feel that the individual sensors are not really lining up very well, like in a free pipe area. This helps us normalize the data. And then when we come to do the interpretation, we did have this cross plot already, but we've just improved the look of it, and we've added colors that match up with the image that it's actually defining. So you can see as we're updating the cutoffs on this cross plot, we can see the solid, liquid, gas, and microannulus map updating on the log plot. For those of you that use Python in IP, you will find a whole load of there's like a new help documentation that you will find very useful. It's also got some examples of user apps and Jupyter notebooks in there. So there's a lot of really good stuff in there that I'm sure you will enjoy. We've also updated the versions of Python that we can use. I believe that some of these are implemented in 2024. I think one of them is just coming in the next update, which is in a couple of weeks' time. And also some other upgrades here, just some new commands for getting array curves, for example, and some bug fixes in there as well, and improved debugging. This is our debug log.
Sorry to interrupt, Ross. Just another couple of minutes, please, if you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm out. Yeah, we're almost done. And yeah, so just finally, just very briefly, everything you've seen so far mostly is in the version that's out in the wild at the moment. A few things that are just coming probably within a month or so, I think. OSDU connector, which is being developed and with our sister company Petrosys. So that's a connector that will allow us to transfer data to and from IP to the OSDU. An upgraded gas analysis module, some new inputs, some new outputs, and some new overlays being added for the identification of gas type, being added in there. And some upgrade to geomechanics. So previously in the rock properties part of the geomechanics workflow, we could always do the isotropic, elastic, and strength calculations. Now we've added in an isotropic, elastic calculations. And that's it. So I think to sort of just summarize what we've seen there, we've seen that we've got improved performance. We've tried to make everyday tasks for everybody easier. So, you know, the general workflows that everyone uses every day. We've streamlined the machine learning stuff, which with the experienced eye module that you saw. Better for alternative subsurface. You saw the CO2 storage upgrades. Better connectivity or integration for OSDU and the UTAP wells. And of course, we're always further enhancing those advanced modules to be even better. So there we go. That's everything. So hopefully you all managed to download IP 2024 soon, if you haven't done so already, and start enjoying these new features. Okay, thanks. Over to you, Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Thank you. Yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit more insight to what's new in IP 2024. Thank you for all your questions. I'm taking a note of all your questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can after the webinar. So we're going to move on to IC now. So we're going to welcome our colleague Catriona Penman, who's going to talk us through what's new in IC 2024. So same applies. If you have any questions at any time, please just keep using the chat and the Q&A function, and we will follow up with you as soon as we can after the webinar. So thank you. Catriona, over to you.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm hoping, I know most of you will be IP users, but I do hope you stick around for the next 25 minutes or so to hear a little bit more about interactive correlations. So thank you for joining us today. I have a few slides to go through, and we'll just get started because I know we are all busy. So I'm Catriona, and I'm going to turn my camera off so that you can focus on my visuals here. But just welcome, and here we go. All right, so IC 2024 came out same time as IP, so we're about a month in now, and I've got a few elements that I wanted to focus on with regard to what came out in that version. So we're going to highlight some of the new additions, the user experience improvements, and then general upgrades. So there's a lot of workflows that our customers use with regard to the mapping, with regard to integrating data, oh, excuse me, frog in my throat, integrating data, pulling data from other applications. So I just want to go through all of that and give you a chance to ask any questions, obviously in the chat or the Q&A section, and we'll get going. So the key benefits that we try to focus on for all of our releases, not just 2024, but all of our releases, we want to listen to our customers. We want to hear what they are working on and what workflows can we help improve within IC, as that's their main working area. How can we help them achieve things in a more efficient manner, save themselves some time and stress? I thought it was a great picture that Ross had up of that stressed guy and the experienced eye. It's like, oh, I wish I had experienced eye. So a lot of that will happen with our IC customers as well. So we want to not have those people. We want to have the de-stressed people working with all the tools available in IC. So the idea around IC is, for 2024, is trying to improve that flexibility when it comes to the data imports. So I'll go into more detail in a wee while, but we want to make that as fast and as flexible as possible. We want to be able to gather as much data in as easily as we can so that you can get on and do all that wonderful visualization that IC can bring to your interpretations. So we have that, the data displays. We've had a lot of people in the last year or so are upgrading their monitors and have been speaking to us more about using IC at higher display resolution, so 150% to 100%. So we have started working on making some of our forms more legible at these bigger percentages. However, I do recommend you still have IC sitting and using 100%. And much like any other software, you can do that independently of your screen resolution. We have added a lot more. We had actually a few clients that had a lot of older databases that they were upgrading or integrating into a new master database. And in doing so, they found that a lot of the well header information was perhaps missing or incorrect. So in order to have our well paths and our map displays work as well as we want them to, we've done a lot of work on putting tools in to allow people to modify well headers and have that have an impact on the well path, rather than just adding in a new location data point for the well path. So there's new tools in place for the well management side of things, and a brand new module, monitoring. Those of you that will have seen an RPM, our reservoir performance module, previously a demo on that, this is the next generation of that, still bringing you those display options, but actually a lot easier to connect into your databases. So we have, when I talk about IC, I've been using IC for quite a while now, back in ODM days. So when I speak about IC, I generally am talking about what we now call the foundation suite. So the data integration and management side of things. and the visualization, so your mapping and your charting, and also that stratigraphic awareness. That to me is IC. That's the foundation of what it is that IC can bring you. And because we've done a lot of work on the monitoring module, this is our advanced, this is the extra module that you don't have to get the most out of IC, but it's a wonderful advanced addition. So let's go into the new additions. So the monitoring module. We have spent, I've got little videos here that I'll play while I'm talking, but we spent a lot of time this year making the connections a lot easier for us to build. So there's no need to understand or know how to write scripts or dig in the back end through your databases to connect to anything. If you have, for the majority of things, it'll be some sort of database, OFM, SQL, Excel spreadsheets. They can all be connected to, and as you can see on that video, if there are issues, it highlights them and the tooltip will tell you what the issue is. Oh, there's an extra space in here that can't be read, and you can modify these things. And then you get a log of what's happened and how long it took. And it's so fast, absolutely ridiculously fast, in my opinion, on the volume of data that can come in here. This is when we're talking about the timestamp data. This is where you have, it could be a well, it could be a reservoir zone, it could be an entire field. But the number of data points, you could have it for every day, even every hour or minute. You know, you could have that density of data being recorded and pulled through. It's taking seconds. For thousands of wells, you're maybe 30 seconds. You know, so for thousands and thousands of data points, it all gets pulled in and we can start visualizing all of that. So here's an example of some of the displays that the monitoring module will add to your visualization, to your charting. So your fluid profiles, you can have a pie chart if you wanted to, or a time on your x-axis here and volumes up here, water cuts. It could be injection, it could be production, it could be economics. You could be plotting oil prices per day, or the price of electricity. You know, it doesn't matter what it is, it's numbers and a date. That's all that this is worrying about. And it allows you to bring in a more dynamic element to your mapping. So if I click over to the next one, hopefully we'll have a little video here. There we go. So you get to choose your date range. So you can have it down to a day, up to 5 years, or the entire range. But you can see here my grid here, my green is changing. I have dynamic queries, which we call markers, highlighting differences that might explain why we're having high or low volumes at this point. And then you have these profiles that are showing everything. So that's the entire range. So when it came online versus when it stopped, and this is it on a smaller scale, showing you the changes. What's also added with the monitoring module is this ability to plot logs downhole. So this is still a standard well stick here, but this panel has a time element to it, and you can see temperature in this case. So, you know, we've got reds warmer, the yellows are colder. So again, explaining what you might be finding in the data. Why on earth is this? I'm getting a kind of a breakout here of heat. What's happening here? Oh, we started steam injection in the neighbouring well. We didn't think they would be connected like this. So let's go and have another look. Is there something on the seismic that we could, should we have brought in fault polygons to help grid this up and help us explain what we should have found? And, you know, all of those things, it's very iterative, right? Your subsurface interpretation is very iterative. So when you see something, you have new data, you make a new interpretation, you are able to then progress your understanding of what's happening. Same happens in our 3D viewer. So these little green dots, I'm going to zoom in on this. So you can see the green dots are coming on. So I've got 4 reservoir zones in production here. And you'll see as the time rolls through that some come online, some are not producing anything. Some of the bubbles do get bigger or smaller on here, depending on the volumes. So it actually turns our 3D into a bit of a 4D display. So we get to see that history of our reservoir zones in this case. If you have that depth element associated with your volumetrics, then this is wonderful. You get your fluids downhole and in space as well. The other new addition for 2024 is our connector to the FMB databases. So TGS have a wonderful range of data sets, you can see them on this little map here, that provide well data, more information that you can speak to TGS and buy those. But when they update them, with new data, we had a few customers that had asked, is there a way for us to make this easier? We're having to export and then import out. So what we did, we spoke to TGS and we built a direct connection. So when they update things, you can now use the discrete data importer to pull in that data. And then you have the full power of IC to pull in data from other places alongside your FMB and start broadening that understanding of what your subsurface data is showing you. All right, so the user experiences. So this is the part that I generally like to talk about the most, because this is the bit that I'm working with as well, and I know most of our customers are working with. Is an import, absolutely, you need to do that fairly regularly, but it's not an everyday task for the most of us. It's a 6 months, we've got the FMB update, let's get that in and start working. So when you're working with the data, we want it to be as easy as possible to build our bubble maps, for example. So what we've done for 2024 is we've advanced the subzone selection. Previously, you could choose one subzone, whereas now you can choose multiple subzones. And what we've also done is disconnected the report with the labeling. So you can have a nice clean map like this and also generate the report. All right, and I know Ross made comments on update 1 that's coming out with new additions for IP, so I'll sneak in one for IC here. When it comes to update 1, there will be an option to actually save the bubble report back to the database as well, so you can get that breakdown in a collection data table and start using that elsewhere. So things like gridding and other visuals. There we go, I don't need to see that again. So when it comes to the data panels, we have added, again, some of the forms that we've looked at to the bigger display resolutions. This is a very common form that everybody uses in IC. So we started with this one. And what we've done is all the tools are still there. It's all absolutely as it was before. You can just see it a bit more. But what we've done is improved the way that the gridding and panels can all move together. So you can see that that's just a keyboard shortcut that was added with a shift, click and an arrow. You can now modify where your panels are. And we've also added in this manual breadth, the width of your zone, the data panel. You can go in and change the width of that interactively rather than having to go into the properties form. So a lot faster. And what we also did was there was a lot of improved graphic displays. So when we had the sinusoidal unconformity here, when you zoomed into 900%, there was some pixelation, but we've improved the graphics on that as well. There we go. So another one for the user workflows is cross plots. So we had, again, feedback from customers that had their porosity permeability, for example, same data point, but one was written and stored as 6 decimal points, one 3 decimal points. Now IC is smart enough to read as much data as you have. So when it was looking for your porosity down to the 6th decimal place and trying to find a correlation plot with the permeability that was only at 3 decimal places, we were missing some of them. So what we did was we added in this rounding option. So no need to do any interpolation. It's just a rounding. So up to 4 decimal places down to 0 decimal places, you are able to round the numbers from your sample points to then have the displays show more. So you can see here when one of the depths are not exactly the same, then the more decimal points that you have on there, the fewer data points you'll have. So the more gross the depth division or the decimal point division, then you will get more data points. And it's actually getting a lot faster now as well. So drafting all of this with even with the more data points is up to 4 times faster now. Another form that we've improved is the template selector. So again, you'll see everything is still there, but it's just got a bit more space to show you a bit more now. And what I'm really loving about it is actually the preview. In previous builds of IC, or previous versions of IC, sorry, this was just a small one that you could maybe make out some text if you were lucky, if it was big fonts. But I just love that this is a big in your face. This is what you're going to get from a display point of view. I find it a lot more helpful when it comes to choosing your templates. And what we've also done is reset the defaults. Something went wrong at some point, but we fixed it for the default for any dynamic template. So this is when you have the database go search for all the data in a particular well. We have that set to look for all interpretations now, not just the none interpretation. So it will give you the most data you could possibly have for this data, for this well. And then for the manually made well sticks, where you can choose whether you have this is the none interpretation, this is Catriona interpretation. That is set, the default is now as applied. So you don't have to worry about choosing an interpretation. You can pick up exactly what the template was using or was saved as. When it comes to the charts themselves, we've added in, much like the data panels, with a shift and an arrow, you are very quickly able to move wells from one side of the other, keeping the spacing. We've also added in a bit more control over the tie displays. So when you have a truncated zone that you have tied, by default, it will not display that tie. I've got another video later showing it. But you have the ability, you get to choose now, I'll show you in the other video. But the ties are we're all working on performance all the time, so we should find all of this, unless you're doing spectral ties, down to the meter scale when you're covering thousands of meters, then generally your charts are getting faster as well. When it comes to the display of data, so I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see here, but we've got 1000.00 and 428.00. If I play this video again and we zoom in, you will see that there's an option now that quickly flicked up. When it comes to displaying those, you actually have a choice now about the trailing zeros. So right now there's nothing on here, and in here you can add zeros or not. So if you have 5 decimal points, but 3 of them are zeros, that was taking up a lot of real estate for some displays. So we removed that, or gave you the option to remove that. So this is what I'm talking about here, this trailing zeros. So the user is able to change that for themselves. And while we were doing this, we actually decided we would tidy this whole form up and allow you to see what changes apply to the entire database, which ones are only for you as a user. These ones apply to the whole database, regardless of the user. And then we have these ones that are the whole system. There's other options we've added in. Again, I was talking about well path data before and the work that we've done for that. So there's automatic updates that you can do for this. So this hopefully is a really quick display. It doesn't plot partial ties, but you can go in and change to plot in full, and it will show you if parts of the sea, it's above, coming up here now, it will show you the whole zone, and then the plot truncated will give you a thinner zone there. So that's, again, it's flexibility. It's up to you as the user, as the provider of this display to somebody else, what it is that you're looking to do with it. All right, the upgrades, I've got about 2 minutes to cover this, so we're absolutely fine. For the last importer, we have actually modified this to use the same options as the ASCII importer. So when it comes to well matching and mapping, saving templates to use it next time, being able to set the curve sets or the interpretations or just the individual merging options, skipping, overwriting, all of these have been added to. And as a result of that, actually, we've advanced the Petrel import and the ASCII import by allowing a control click or a shift click on multiple rows to apply those settings to all of them. So it gives you a nice brief rundown of what's coming in, and then you get the report at the end, what was matched, what was added, any issues that you might have. That all comes in the report, much like the ASCII loader. Excuse me. So for the well paths, I've said this a few times, we've got a new option here where you didn't have surface XYs. You were able to go in now and it will automatically set, without having to press these buttons, just opening up the header, it will tell you, do you want to recalculate this based on what information you've told us? And obviously you can do it manually as well. We're all about flexibility in IC. So what happens when you have wells that were sitting at 0, 0? It's a valid location. So what we really want it to do is use the same well path, but actually start and keep the relative well path up here. So we did a lot of tidying up of the behind the scenes, how IC reads and works with the relative XYs, DX, DYs on the well paths. There we go. So that's all available. This again, the ASCII imports, like I say, we added in the more flexibility for the control click, and then applying the updates, you know, the import types or the curve sets or the interpretation sets. You can do that on a right click here for individual zones, rather than having to filter them all out, especially for the curves, right? It's not as simple to start typing and have one result or multiple results for one set of curves. Okay. There we go. So that's it, back to the start again. So this is us. There we go. Bang on time. I wanted to have a couple of minutes to spare, but what we've focused on for IC24 is, oh, sorry, 2024, is we've built that, improved the monitoring modules. So anything with a timestamp on it, integrate and try and visualize that data alongside your subsurface, alongside your static geology. Any of those interpretations can be displayed, as I showed earlier, together. And we have the new LAS importer, we've got the new FMB importer, and we've got the upgraded ASCII Petrel and the LAS import with those multiple selections to apply your settings to. And all of those still have that template selection, so anything that you set can be saved to then reapply and load onto the next file that you're importing. When it comes to the preferences and the user choices in the options, the configuration form, we've opened that up a lot more as well. We've tidied it up so that it's clear what it is that you are affecting. Is it just you that you're impacting on, or is it other users of that database? When it comes to working, right, a lot of our work time is spent on charts and maps in IC. So improving that bubbles, the bubble reports, the timing and performance speeds of generating those maps and the charts and having those keyboard shortcuts. Again, that's maybe just me, but I think a lot of our customers quite like having the keyboard shortcuts so that they are getting to things as soon as they can. So we have added more of those when it comes to shifting things around. You can still set the distances to be, you know, based on actual geographic distance from each other, or you just have it set to be, you know, 50, 100, whatever it happens to be. We did a lot of work. Again, we always are upgrading and making sure that our PDF exports are as good quality as we can get and as fast as we can get. So we're always speaking to our provider of our PDF workflows and improving those. And then we have the well path and well position. So again, this is it's more of a one-off tool that you'd need to use. So if you have a lot of wells that don't have your X and Ys, and you need to work on something specific along a well path, and we want you to have the option to give the exact location and then the relative well path. So we did a lot of work on that. So if you have any particular questions, or you'd like to see that in action, or you'd like help with your database, that's when you can get in touch with us at any time and we can have a call one-to-one to go through all that with you. And that's pretty much it. We're aiming for faster, more flexible, helpful visualization and integration, which is at the heart of IC. There we go, bang on time.
I know, perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone for all the questions. Yeah, we thought we might run out of time, so we will follow up with you all ASAP. I've got a note of everything, and we will get back to you. So thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you at the next one. Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.